Thick, shiny, full. These words are often used to describe a woman's hair when she's pregnant. But then once you have a baby, you can often find your hair doesn't maintain this salon-worthy level of quality. And not only does it not return to quote-unquote normal, but for some women, their hair can start to thin and shed. Postpartum hair loss is incredibly common, and some studies show that up to 90% of women experience some degree of hair shedding after having a baby. And yet, it can feel alarming, seeing clumps of hair in the shower, on your pillow, in your hands, often without knowing whether it's normal or something to worry about. I remember noticing it a few months after giving birth. At first, I thought it was just a bit of extra shedding, and then suddenly it felt like quite a lot. And I didn't know if it was to be expected, if it was hormonal, is it something I should be treating? I'm Katie O'Malley, journalist, broadcaster, and founder of A Long Way to Go. And today we'll be exploring what's actually happening to our hair during pregnancy and postpartum, and how we can support it properly. To do that, I'm excited to be joined by Anabel Kingsley. Anabel Kingsley is brand owner and brand president of Philip Kingsley, the iconic British hair and scalp care brand founded by her father in 1968. A leading authority in trichology, Anabel blends scientific expertise with a deep commitment to supporting those experiencing hair and scalp concerns. As a consultant trichologist, she has become a trusted voice in the beauty industry, with expert commentary featured in Vogue, the Financial Times, and the Telegraph. What I love about Anabel's work is that it brings clarity to something that can feel incredibly emotional. And at the heart of her work is the belief that true hair health is rooted in a holistic approach, one that goes far beyond the products we use. Anabel is a passionate advocate for empowering education, championing the understanding of how lifestyle, genetics, health, hormones, and nutrition shape the condition of our hair and scalp. So Anabel, welcome to A Long Way to Go.
Thank you so much for having me.
So lovely to have you here. Before we get into postpartum hair loss, I think there's a lot of curiosity around what happens during pregnancy itself with our hair, because many women notice that their hair feels thicker, it's shinier, fuller, even healthier. So what is happening hormonally during pregnancy that affects growth?
There are a few things going on, but the main thing is that we have this surge, this rise in estrogen, which is a really hair supportive hormone. So it helps to keep hairs in the growth phase for longer. So when we have very high levels during pregnancy, most women, especially towards the end of the second and during the third trimester, you notice much less hair fall. So you have thicker hair because less is falling out. So you're maintaining more on your scalp. So that's the main thing that's driving those pregnancy changes. But then I think there are other things. We look after ourselves better when we're pregnant. We stay really on top of our nutrition. We're closely monitored by doctors who will have blood tests. They'll tell us to take supplements. We're encouraged mainly, unless you already have a child, to rest
Yes.
and de-stress. And all of these things can have a beneficial impact on the hair too. So while much of it is down to that hormone, those hormonal changes, some of it is because we're looking after ourselves better.
Interesting. I think also to your point as well about being tested, you'll figure out if you're iron deficiency or you've got issues that need to be monitored during pregnancy so closely that you are picking out every single detail, whether it's your skin, your hair, you're noticing everything because your body's changing and evolving so much.
Yeah. And I had my favorite hair during pregnancy, and I would lose, I don't know about you, about 5 strands a day, and it was absolutely wonderful. And then it's quite a shock when that turns on its head a few months after giving birth.
And are there any warning signs during pregnancy that might indicate underlying hair or scalp issues, perhaps that you need to be aware of during pregnancy or postpartum or in general?
A common misconception is that everyone's hair is marvelous when they're pregnant, and this isn't always the case. So you can actually quite commonly get some extra hair shedding in the first trimester because those hormones haven't really had their impact yet. And anything that happened prior to becoming pregnant could impact your hair. So if you found it very stressful if you had a stressful time becoming pregnant, that hair shedding might hit in the first trimester because there's always a delayed, when you have something happen, it doesn't cause hair loss right away. It sends hairs into the resting stage, which lasts approximately 3 months. So, and then they shed. So you might notice some extra shedding in the first trimester. It's nothing to worry about. You don't have to do anything about it. It will self-correct. Some women find their scalp becomes quite temperamental. often in the first trimester, but it can be at any time. And again, it's because we have these massive hormonal changes which impact skin all over the body. So you might find that your scalp's, especially first trimester, it's more oily. Maybe you're getting some pimples. You might find your face is breaking out a bit, that your skin's looking a bit like it did when you were a teenager.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
those same things can happen to your scalp. It's nothing to worry about. It's just you might want to then change the type of shampoo you're using. So opt for antimicrobial, antifungal, so an anti-dandruff shampoo, cleanse your scalp more frequently, and maybe use a soothing topical.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting to think of because I actually haven't thought of when I was pregnant and now postpartum. I probably was just using the same shampoo, conditioner, doing everything the same with my hair, even though I did have shedding afterwards. So, is there anything that we should be doing if you are pregnant when it comes to hair care, whether it comes to not only the products that we're using, but the tools we're using as
Mhm.
well? Is there anything that we need to be aware of?
I think so. Firstly, focus on have a look at your scalp or assess how it's feeling, and then switch out your shampoo if it changes. So some women find that their scalp becomes oilier, so then use a more cleansing shampoo. In the third trimester, a lot of women find that their scalp is more dry, or their hair becomes dry. Sometimes oil production can decrease in this time, so you might need to use, at least for the hair, a more hydrating or moisturizing shampoo or conditioner, or increase your use of conditioning masks and treatments.
Very interesting.
But generally, just take cues from your hair and scalp, and then
Mm.
adjust what you're using accordingly. And if you have any questions about ingredients that you should or shouldn't use when you're pregnant, then you ask your doctor.
Yeah. A few months, obviously, after giving birth, as we touched on then, everything starts to shift again. It might not be immediate, it can happen a few months later. And you start to notice it quite a lot. Either the baby's fingers get caught in your hair and you start noticing hair coming out, or you're in the shower and you see clumps. And when it comes to that postpartum hair loss, what is actually happening to our hair in that moment?
Mainly, or the initial shed, is due to hormones. So estrogen levels very rapidly drop after we give birth. So all of those hairs that were being supported by extra estrogen, they then, not every hair on your head,
Of course, yeah.
but a lot of the extra hairs that were maintained then are sent into the resting phase, and then 3 months later they come out. So it's not, you're basically just shedding the excess hair
Right.
that you maintained to a certain extent, and that can be quite a lot. But then there's a lot of other things that can be happening as well. So you mentioned iron, having your iron tested during pregnancy, and when you often women are iron deficient in the third trimester,
Yes.
already. And then you give birth, and whether that's a vaginal birth or you have a cesarean section, you lose blood. And then those iron levels and ferritin, which is a protein that stores iron, those drop. And that in and of itself, around 2 to 3 months or even 4 months later, can cause a huge amount of hair loss. So it isn't just as clear cut as saying it's your hormones, it's normal, there's nothing you can do, because there are these other things that can and often do factor into postpartum hair loss.
And you mentioned this is something I always think is really interesting as well, is the term normal, because I use it myself and a lot of people use it. And how much hair loss is actually considered normal? Obviously, if a lot of hair, when I even say a lot, I actually don't know how much hair when we're talking about shedding. So what is kind of normal shedding and loss during this time?
So in a normal or healthy hair growth cycle, you have approximately 90% of hairs in the growth phase, so that's the anagen phase, and you have about 10% in catagen and telogen, and exogen, so resting and shedding phase. That usually equates to about 100 to up to 100 to 150 hairs a day, as that's considered normal. But everyone's normal is different. Some people might find they lose about 30 hairs a day. For other people, and I hear this a lot from clients, is I've always shed a lot. So that's their normal.
Right.
But then it's when your normal shifts and you notice more hair coming out than is usual for you, that will be too much hair loss.
And at that moment, if someone's noticing that what was normal previously isn't so much now in the postpartum phase. When should they perhaps seek advice or support? When would you say, okay, I think this is tipping into maybe you need some extra support here?
I would say if at the 6-month mark, you're still having a lot of shedding, or 7 month, that you should definitely go see a specialist to have bloods done and to see what's going on. Ideally, though, you should just start to do that soon
Yes.
after birth, because a lot of these things, it's about prevention rather than firefighting. But
Yeah.
it is really difficult. It's
Yeah.
hard to have a doctor to get a doctor to do your blood tests,
Yes.
unless you are telling them XYZ symptoms. But I think in the postpartum period, women are often dismissed. Oh, I'm tired. I have no energy. I'm feeling really low. Well, you have a newborn. What do you expect? That's normal. But those are also symptoms of iron deficiency. So, iron deficiency can contribute to postpartum depression, it can cause fatigue. So, I think it's this just dismissing women's concerns and how they're feeling in
Mm.
themselves
And
that,
it's that
yeah,
advocacy as well to be able
to
to do that
advocate for
postpartum
yourself.
is
Yeah.
so important. And as we touched on with postpartum shedding, when it starts to happen, the immediate response sometimes is try and fix it immediately. And there's so much conflicting advice from supplements and shampoos and treatments, it's actually hard to know what makes a difference. And if you've had a baby in the last few years, like I have, you'll know just how much your social media algorithm is listening to these conversations that you're talking about when you have shedding and hair loss, and you'll be served endless product recommendations that claim that they'll help. What can women realistically do to support their hair health during postpartum shedding? Are there any specific nutrients or products, supplements that are genuinely helpful?
So I think the most important thing is to eat a really nutritious diet. And one, it's hard when you have a newborn. I remember my baby falling asleep on me, and I would be hungry, and I wouldn't dare
Yeah.
to move because I would wake them up. So even simple things like keeping snacks around where you know that your baby might fall asleep on you, so if you do become hungry, that you can just grab a handful of nuts or a smoothie or whatever it is. And this is also really difficult, and I felt this pressure as well, which is you give birth, your body's very different, and you feel this pressure to get your old body back quickly, and this can doesn't do our hair or anything any good. So just that's a really difficult one to address. That's more of a kind of
Yes.
conversation about society. Just reminding yourself that you've just done this incredible thing of growing a baby, and your body should be different, and that's healthy and that's normal, and not to put too much pressure on yourself, or not to put any pressure on
Yeah.
yourself to bounce back.
Oh gosh. Yeah, exactly. We're trying to eradicate all
Yeah.
of that narrative.
So eating enough protein is really important. Your hair is made of protein. Complex carbohydrates are essential because your hair cells are the second fastest dividing cells your body makes. So they're really hungry cells, but also because your hair isn't an essential tissue, your body gives it last priority.
Right.
So it's this real struggle.
Poor hair.
I know, poor hair. We really care about it, but our bodies don't.
Yeah.
Healthy fats, vitamin D is really important. You can't really get enough through your diet, so it's usually a good idea to take a supplement, but always, especially if you're breastfeeding, speak to your doctor about it. Enough calories is really important, and taking a supplement always under the guidance of your doctor is really important. But I think generally it would be safe to say that most women postpartum are iron deficient or suboptimal levels of ferritin, which is a stored iron. So upping your intake of iron rich foods, taking an iron supplement, but making sure you're having your levels retested in about 3 months, because equally you don't want iron to go too high. And hair growth supplements postpartum, a multivitamin is good, well formulated multivitamin and mineral supplement is probably your best bet. And that could be a hair supplement, but you just have to check
Yes.
what is in it and the levels of the different things contained. So one of the most useless nutrients to take would be biotin. And a lot of the hair growth supplements That's their main ingredient. So it will be biotin, a bit of protein, and some like horsetail or whatever it is
Oh,
extra, which it's what you probably need is vitamin D, vitamin B12, zinc, and iron. So look at that. And in terms of products for hair growth, when your hair sheds, it will grow back. So you don't have your hair will grow back. So I think that's you're not going to go bald. Postpartum hair loss to a certain extent is to be expected. The hair follicle doesn't change, it isn't damaged, it doesn't shrink. So you don't have to do anything. You don't have to put a topical on your scalp, but anti-hair fall or anti-shedding or density drops, what they can do is help your hair to recover faster. But they're not miracles, but they might help you get your density back faster than had you not used something, because they do help to reduce daily shedding.
I remember when I spoke to a hairdresser a few months ago, and I was seeing all these products online. Instagram was pushing me specifically a few products, and they were saying that sometimes there's caffeine in the products that actually is, I don't know if it's a placebo effect, but they said it's sometimes different to what you think is happening to what's actually happening. Is that true? Do some of the products contain caffeine that gives the like placebo effect or like the appearance of fuller hair, but perhaps isn't? I don't really.
Caffeine's actually one of the better
Is it one
researched
of the
ingredients.
because at the time I was thinking, oh, I don't know whether it's something to invest in, to avoid. The conversation didn't go any further. She just kind of gave me this little tidbit of information. I was thinking, I don't know what to do with that now. So is caffeine actually a really good thing to have?
It's a good, yeah, it is. I would
Amazing.
say in a leave-on topical is better, because if it's in a shampoo, you're rinsing it off. So it's
Yes.
not going to be as beneficial. Always down to percentages as well. And you don't necessarily know the percentage of the actives that a company is putting in their product. So just you could ask, they don't always tell you, or you buy from a brand that you trust that they are going to make a decent formula.
And is there anything that a woman perhaps unknowingly might be doing that would worsen the shedding or the loss? Is there anything that accidentally common mistakes we might be making that actually makes hair loss worse?
I think reducing shampooing frequency. I know it's reducing shampooing frequency, and I completely understand. I went through postpartum hair shedding twice. I've had hair shedding multiple times in my life, and it is absolutely horrific when you see literally handfuls coming out when you shampoo, and it creates this anxiety and you dread your shampoo day. But when you reduce your shampoo frequency, you're negatively impacting the health of your scalp, and that could cause extra hair shedding. It also makes when you do shampoo more distressing, because hair fall is accumulating. So if you're shampooing daily to every other day and massaging your scalps, all the loose hairs that are ready to come out are dislodged on a daily or every other day basis. So when you have hair shedding or excessive shedding, as opposed to 100 hairs a day, you might lose 300. So if you leave 3 days, you could see maybe 7, 8, 900 hairs coming out when you do. And that is an absolute shock, much more so than seeing maybe 250 come out. And it just then, it's this feedback loop of, well, I can't shampoo more, I can't see this much every day. But actually, if you were to shampoo more frequently, you would see less come out when you do shampoo. So I think that's one. Another, just pulling your hair back really tightly. Probably, babies love to pull on hair.
Love to
Just
pull.
put your hair up. If you are losing your hair, you don't want it breaking off as well.
Yeah, and you don't need more opportunities where it could come out, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we know hair loss, regardless of duration, can feel really unsettling, as we've spoken about, especially when you're a mum and your body has changed so much during pregnancy and postpartum. How would you advise a woman who's pregnant or postpartum, just when it comes to managing the anxiety that often comes with postpartum hair loss? What advice would you have for them?
I would say that pretty much all women go through it. So don't feel that you're alone in what you're feeling or what you're experiencing. That there's nothing wrong with you, and just to reassure yourself that your hair will grow back. It's not permanent. I understand, and as I said, I've experienced it myself. It is so scary, and it can really knock your confidence and your self-esteem. But there's nothing wrong. You're not going to go bald.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what would you say in terms of how we can take a more long-term realistic view of hair recovery? So postpartum, we think about a 2-year recovery, as they often say. How can we think about it even more long-term and sustainable hair routine, hair care routine when we're thinking about recovery long-term?
I think all about taking that holistic approach that you mentioned earlier, looking at all the possible factors, and there are many, that can impact hair growth, and optimizing them or taking care of them. So scalp health, shampooing regularly, exfoliating your scalp on a weekly basis, eating foods that support your gut microbiome, because that in turn supports scalp health, where there's a lot of research coming out now showing this. And eating a healthy, balanced diet, keeping stress levels as low as possible, because stress can impact your hair, and looking at how you're treating your hair, because again, your hair might be growing wonderfully, but then you're doing kind of naughty things to it once it's
Yes.
grown and it's breaking off. And hair is there for us to enjoy, and it's a way to express ourselves. So obviously, I'm not saying don't heat style, don't color your hair. I mean, I bleach my hair, but it's just knowing how to take care of it. So using weekly deep conditioning treatments, if you bleach or color your hair, using bond repair treatments, being very gentle when you handle your hair. So when you brush it, things like always detangling from your ends up. Always using heat protection if you're going to heat style. Your hair is weaker when it's wet, so keep really scratchy, bristly brushes away from your hair, and protect it from the sun.
I
So
think this
those
is
are all.
really useful advice to hear, though. I think especially when you're a time poor mum, you're thinking, right, I'm just going to put it in a top knot and go out the house. Or you'll have washed your hair and you're thinking, oh, I'm not going to bother with it. But it's like even just like detangling it from the ends or putting a heat protective spray in, or these little things, even though in the moment it might feel like a lot or sound like a lot right now, but actually habit stacking those things will be so much easier in the long term. And then also recovery is going to be much better.
Yeah. And when I, in my postpartum period, and granted, I am a bit insane when it comes to looking after my hair, bit OTT. I would put on a conditioning mask, a pre-shampoo conditioning mask, so our elasticizer, sometime in the morning on damp hair, and just put my hair up, lounge around, not lounge around, kind of have a nervous breakdown with my baby all day. And then I don't mean I'd have a nervous breakdown all day, but I would be in that newborn stage, and then I would shampoo it out of my hair later. And I do this about once a week. So you can kind of multitask with the mask on. And I think pre-shampoo is quite nice because you can leave it on for hours.
Yes.
And you're not under pressure to wash it out quickly.
Yeah, it's not one of those ones you're standing naked in the shower for
Yeah,
10 minutes going, when can I wash this out? That's actually really helpful to know. So now we're going to go into a very quick fire round that we're calling the 2 a.m. Google list. These are the questions many women end up Googling in the middle of the night, but they really shouldn't have to. So, are you ready? Ready. If you could choose one product that might help women during this time, what would it be and why?
I would choose our density preserving scalp drops, because they do help to reduce daily hair fall. And while they aren't treating the cause of postpartum hair shedding, they are going to help reduce the amount of hair fall that you're seeing and help your hair recover faster.
What should we avoid during this time? Whether it's using tight hair bands, layering products in our hair, are there any things that we need to be avoiding during the postpartum phase?
I would say just watch for traction on your scalp from putting your hair up into a bun. So make sure it's not pulling on your roots, and that the hair tie itself isn't sort of strangling your hair, because that can cause breakage.
And just finally, what's one myth about hair loss that you'd like to debunk right here today?
I think that hair loss is mainly confined to menopausal women, because it can happen at any age after puberty. And I know from the young women that I see, and this isn't just postpartum hair loss, I know from a lot of the young women I see that they feel very isolated when they lose their hair, and like there's something wrong with them, and that they're the exception to the rule, when in fact it is so common. And that's anyone listening to this, if you're in your late teens, 20s, or 30s, don't feel alone if you're losing your hair, and there's a lot that can be done to help.
It's really reassuring to hear that, I think, because, yeah, no one's alone in that at all. Before we finish each week, we ask our listeners to submit their questions so they can have advice directly from an expert. This week, a message has been sent in from one of our A Long Way to Go followers, Emma, and here's what she has to say.
And I want to ask, will my hair ever return to normal? I experienced quite a bit of hair loss around 3 months postpartum, which has now stopped, but since then the regrowth is intense. What can I do to manage this?
So Emma, I would say to Emma that her hair will grow back. It's her hair loss isn't permanent, and if her hair is still shedding after 3 to 4 months, then she should go to her GP and ask for blood tests to see if there are any underlying nutritional deficiencies that might be contributing.
And if there's anything postpartum, say if you were hitting the 1 year mark and you're noticing it's come back a bit fuller, but still not the same consistency or texture, what advice would you have?
I'd say to go see a trichologist, because even though postpartum hair loss is temporary and hair does grow back, sometimes it can coincide with the onset of other hair density changes that are unrelated. So you just want to check that something else isn't going on top of that.
And just finally, what's one thing every woman should know about postpartum hair loss?
The one lesson would be to advocate for yourself, because that will help both your health and your hair.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.